So Chris Parker asked me to mention a few books that I thought were of particular importance. There are so many good books, so the 5 that I'm going to mention are a bit random, but they're ones that I feel are very helpful for both young and old who are considering what it means to walk in the light of Scripture. First one is a book written by Michael Williams, and the title is taken from a well-known song. The title is Far As the Curse is Found, Covenant Story of Redemption. Some of you might be familiar with Al Walter's book, Creation Regained, where he talks about the cosmic scope of creation, fall, and redemption. And that's very much Mike Williams' theme as well. He begins the book, which is really a survey of biblical theology. He begins with Exodus and the resurrection, going back to Genesis and then walking through the Old and the New Testament. It's a very readable book. It was originally written for first, second year college students in the United States. It's about 300 pages and published by Presbyterian and Reformed. The second book is a book that I've read with new professors at Dordt College. But my sense is that it would be also very helpful for graduates coming from a state or public university going into a Christian college situation in New Zealand or Australia as well. In other words, going into secondary or maybe even primary. The book's title is Joining the Mission, a guide for mainly new college faculty, and I'm pushing it a little bit for new faculty coming from state university into Christian school settings. The book is written by Susan Van Zanten, published about in 2011, I believe, and it's a very readable book for those who love the Lord and yet wonder what does it mean to teach Christianly. She's not pushing a particular agenda in terms of Reformed or Lutheran or Baptist, but she asks, what does it mean to be a faithful professor? And in one chapter, for example, she talks about the ways in which different institutions and different faculty address the question of how do I integrate faith and learning. She actually takes the notion of integration and faith and learning and suggests that's maybe not the best way to talk about it. Going back to the segregation in the United States, for example, integration would suggest that the two are separate, and faith and learning are never separate. They're always entwined. And so she does a good job of challenging new faculty coming from state public universities who haven't had an opportunity to think much about what does Christian education look like as we live each day. I also want to mention a book written by Marva J. Dawn. She has a Lutheran background, I believe. She's written much in the area of worship, and because I think keeping the worship on Sunday and through the week central is very important. The title is a bit provocative. It is a royal waste of time, whereby waste is in quotation marks. The subtitle reads, Worshiping God and Being Church for the World. Some people think going to church might be a waste of time. She's suggesting it is a royal waste of time as we take time for our God in worship, bringing thanksgiving and coming under the power of His Word. That's a little bit older book, maybe from the early 2000s. And then I'm going to mention a topic and 2 books. The topic is the question of evolution. Whether it's in the secondary classroom or certainly in the college and university, the Christian community has to find ways to intelligently address the reality of evolutionism making inroads into the mind of our world. I read this summer a book by Francis Collins. Francis Collins was in charge of the Genome Project that mapped the genome of a human being. And he tells a story in a book called The Language of God. A scientist presents evidence for belief. He presents a case that both evolution and Christianity can dwell in the same person. I take issue with him on very many points, but for those of you who know scientists, biologists who are firmly committed to evolution and say there's no way to combine evolution with Christianity, I would certainly recommend the book of Francis Collins. Again, I take issue with him on many points. So another book, and that's written out of the Reformational tradition, it's a book by Jacob Klopwijk, Klapyijk, a professor of mine at the Free University, now retired. The title of his book is Purpose in the Living World, ? Creation and Emergent Evolution. The book was published by Cambridge University Press. It is a provocative read. Those of you familiar with Reformational philosophy will recognize the name, and Klopwijk integrates at times along the way that Reformational framework. Again, I take issue with him on a number of points. Really, my point in mentioning these two books is that the Christian community needs to have an informed response to the inroads being made by evolutionary theory in all kinds of disciplines far beyond those of biology. And then a book that I've read, am reading most recently with my students. I teach a course called The Philosophy of the Environment. It's been wonderful to be able to drink clear water right out of the ground here in New Zealand, but that's certainly not the case in so many parts of the world. The book is written by Fred Van Dyke, and the title is a bit strange, Between Heaven and Earth, and he's seeking to articulate Christian perspectives on environmental protection. And because I'm convinced that environmental protection also is something that needs the priority and attention of Christians in today's world, that's why I mention it to you today. So I hope that you found this list of titles somewhat helpful, and don't be afraid to contact me if you differ with my evaluation of them. Thank you.